You were never supposed to know about these. Not the weapons, not the battles, but the food. Because behind every war, there was a hidden war for survival. And the truth is, some of the foods that kept people alive were never meant to be eaten. Tonight, you're going to see them. The underground meals, the desperate creations, the secret survival foods people used when everything else was gone. And trust me, by the time we reach number 3, you'll question what food really means. And number 1? That wasn't food. That was a last resort. Let's begin. Number 15. It was called hardtack. And if you've never heard of it, that's probably a good thing. Because this wasn't made to taste good. It was made to last forever. Flour, water, sometimes salt. That's it. No flavor, no softness, no comfort. Just a rock-solid biscuit. So hard, soldiers joked it could break teeth. But during the American Civil War, this was everywhere. Barrels of it. Stacks of it. Boxes filled with these lifeless squares. And here's the part no one tells you. After a few weeks, they weren't eating it alone. They were eating it with worms. Tiny insects would crawl inside, lay eggs, and multiply. Soldiers had 2 choices: throw it away and starve, or eat it and survive. Many chose survival. They'd tap the biscuit on their rifles, watch the bugs fall out, and then eat it anyway. This was not food. This was endurance. And for thousands of soldiers, that was enough. Number 14. This one was known as coffee soup. And no, it's not what you're imagining. During wartime shortages, especially in prison camps, real food was rare. But coffee? Sometimes there was just enough. So people got creative. They took black coffee, poured it over stale bread, sometimes added a little sugar if they had it, and called it a meal. Warm, bitter, thin, but it filled the stomach. And in freezing conditions, that warmth mattered, because hunger doesn't just weaken you, it breaks you, slowly, mentally, emotionally. This soup became a routine, morning, night, whenever there was nothing else. And after a while, your body stopped asking questions, it just accepted it. This was not cooking, this was strategy, and somehow, it kept people alive. Number 13. They called it salt pork, and it sounds simple, almost normal. But the reality? Far from it. This was meat, preserved in massive amounts of salt. So much salt, it could last for months, even years. No refrigeration, no fresh supply, just barrels filled with thick, fatty cuts, soaked and hardened. Before eating, soldiers had to boil it, not once, not twice, but sometimes 3 times, just to remove enough salt to make it edible. Even then, it was heavy, greasy, and overpowering. But here's why it mattered. Fat equals energy. And in war, energy equals survival. Marching miles, carrying gear, fighting exhaustion. This food gave them fuel, not comfort, not satisfaction, fuel. And when your body is running on empty, that's all that matters. Number 12. This one is hard to even say, because it wasn't supposed to happen. They called it sawdust bread. Yes, sawdust. During extreme shortages, when flour ran out, people started mixing whatever they could find. Ground bark, wood fibers, even sawdust. They'd combine it with tiny amounts of flour, just enough to hold it together, and bake it. The result? Dry, crumbly, almost inedible. It didn't nourish properly. It didn't taste like food, but it gave the illusion of eating. And sometimes, that illusion is what keeps people going, because when everything collapses, even pretending to survive can help you survive. This was not bread. This was desperation. Number 11. This one might surprise you. Dandelion greens. Yes, the same plant most people call a weed. During wartime rationing, especially in rural America, people turned to what was growing around them. Dandelions were everywhere, free, accessible, ignored, but they were edible. Boiled, sautéed, sometimes eaten raw. Bitter but packed with nutrients, vitamins, minerals, life. Families would send children out, not to play, but to collect these plants. Every leaf mattered, every handful meant another meal. And slowly, these weeds became lifelines. This was not just food, this was nature stepping in, when everything else failed. But here's what no one tells you. The deeper you go into wartime survival, the less food starts to look like food, and the more it starts to look like survival at any cost. And what's coming next changes everything. Number 10. They called it mule meat. And no, this wasn't planned. It was never part of any ration. But in war, plans don't matter. Survival does. During long campaigns, especially in the Civil War, mules were everywhere. They carried supplies, pulled wagons, moved artillery. They were valuable until there was no food left. Then everything changed. When rations ran out, soldiers looked at these animals differently. Not as transport, as meat, tough, gamey, hard to chew, but edible. And when you haven't eaten in days, you don't ask questions, you don't complain, you eat. Some soldiers even said they couldn't tell if it was mule or something worse. But they didn't stop, because hunger doesn't care. This was not a choice. This was survival taking over. Number 9. This one is disturbing in a different way. Roasted acorns. Yes, the same acorns that fall from trees. Normally, they're bitter, almost toxic if not prepared correctly. But people learned. They soaked them, boiled them, roasted them, again and again, until the bitterness faded. What was left? A rough, nutty substance, sometimes ground into flour, sometimes eaten as is. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And during times when supply lines were cut, forests became grocery stores, quiet, hidden, reliable. This was not farming, this was adapting, because when the system breaks, nature becomes your last supplier. Number 8. This one feels almost unreal. Vinegar pie. No fruit, no filling, just vinegar, sugar, water, and a bit of flour or egg if available. People created this during extreme shortages to mimic something they missed. Apple pie. The taste? Surprisingly close. Sweet, slightly sour, enough to trick the mind. And that's the point. Because in war, you don't just lose food, you lose normal life, you lose comfort. And sometimes, creating a fake version of something familiar is enough to keep you going. This was not dessert, this was psychological survival. Number 7. They called it trench stew, but that name makes it sound better than it was, because this stew was whatever could be found. Scraps. Leftovers. Sometimes things you wouldn't normally eat. Thrown together, boiled in a single pot, shared among many. It changed every day. No recipe, no rules. Sometimes it was watery, sometimes thick, sometimes barely edible, but it was hot, and in the cold, that mattered more than taste. Because warmth can keep a human going longer than flavor ever could. This was not cooking, this was collective survival. Number 6. This one is simple, but powerful. Molasses on bread. During wartime rationing, sugar became scarce, luxury disappeared. But molasses? It was cheap, available, long-lasting, so people used it. Thick, dark syrup, spread over dry bread, sticky, strong, heavy, but full of energy. And for children, it was sometimes the only sweet thing they had. A small moment of relief. In a world filled with stress. Because survival isn't just physical, it's emotional too. And sometimes a single bite of something sweet is enough to remind you you're still human. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything changes. Up to now, these foods were difficult, strange, uncomfortable, but what comes next was never meant to be eaten at all. Number 5. This one crossed a line. They called it leather stew. And yes, it was exactly what it sounds like. When there was absolutely nothing left, no grain, no meat, no plants, people turned to what they had. Belts, boots, harnesses, boiled, for hours, sometimes all day, trying to soften something that was never meant to be food. The water would darken, thicken slightly, and they would drink it. Sometimes chew the softened pieces, There was almost no nutrition, no real taste, just something. Something in the stomach, something to fight the silence of hunger. Because hunger isn't just pain, it's emptiness, and that emptiness can break a person. This was not food. This was the edge of survival. Number 4. This one is quieter, but just as powerful. Burnt flour gravy. When supplies ran low, people still needed to feel like they were eating something real, so they took flour and cooked it longer than usual, until it darkened, almost burned, then added water, a little salt if they were lucky. What came out looked like gravy. It smelled almost like food, and they poured it over whatever they had. Bread, scraps, nothing. It didn't provide much, but it gave structure. It made a meal feel like a meal, and in times of chaos, structure matters, routine matters, because when everything else disappears, even a simple ritual can hold you together. Number 3. This one is hard to forget. Ration chocolate. Now you might think, chocolate? That doesn't sound bad. But this wasn't candy. This was survival fuel, given to soldiers during World War II, designed with a strange purpose. It had to be high in energy, small in size. And here's the shocking part. It was designed to taste just bad enough, so soldiers wouldn't eat it unless they absolutely had to. Hard, dense, bitter, almost impossible to enjoy, but packed with calories. A single bar could keep someone going for hours, maybe longer. This wasn't a treat. This was controlled survival. Engineered, measured, precise. Because in war, even food becomes a strategy. Take a second. Because what you've seen so far is not history most people talk about. Not in schools, not in books, but it's real. And it shows something deeper. How far people will go just to stay alive. And now, we reach the final 2. Number 2. This one was never meant to be seen. They called it garbage scrap meals, and it came from places most people would never look. Behind camps, near supply dumps, around kitchens, anything that was thrown away became an opportunity. Peels, bones, burnt leftovers, rotten edges. People would collect them, quietly, carefully, because even this was not guaranteed. Then they'd clean what they could, cut away the worst parts, and boil everything together. What came out was something between soup and survival. Thin, unpredictable, sometimes dangerous. But it was food, or at least close enough. And when your body is shutting down, close enough becomes everything. Because hunger removes pride, it removes standards, it removes everything except the need to live. This was not eating. This was refusing to die. Number 1, and this is the one most people don't want to talk about. Because it doesn't feel like history. It feels like something else. They called it starvation rations. But that name hides the truth. These were not designed to feed people. They were designed to keep them barely alive. Tiny portions, measured down to the smallest amount. Just enough calories to stop the body from completely collapsing. Sometimes just a piece of bread, a sip of broth, a fraction of what a human actually needs. Day after day, week after week, people didn't feel full. They didn't feel satisfied. They felt nothing. Weak, slow, fading. And yet, they kept going. Because even the smallest amount can keep a human alive longer than you think. This was not survival food. This was controlled survival, and it shows something uncomfortable. The line between living and just not dying is thinner than we imagine. Now think about everything you've just seen. From hardtack filled with worms, to leather boiled into nothing, to scraps pulled from garbage. This wasn't cooking. This wasn't culture. This was survival in its rawest form. No filters, no comfort, no choices. Just people, doing whatever it took to see one more day. And here's the truth most people avoid. If you were there, you would have done the same. Because when survival takes over, everything changes. So now I want to ask you something. Which one shocked you the most? Was it the leather, the garbage meals, or something even simpler, like the dandelions? Tell me in the comments. And here's a challenge. If you had to survive on just one of these for a week, which would you choose? Because history isn't just something we watch. Sometimes it's something we need to understand. And if this opened your eyes, subscribe, because there are more stories like this. The ones history tried to forget. But we won't.